So I was always obviously a huge fan of music. I was just always drawn and attracted to the sound of the bass guitar. It just sounded so powerful to me. It sounded different. I'm a huge hard rock and metal guy, and my first real influence was Jason Newsted. That's kind of the era I came up with in Metallica. As I got a little bit older, into my teens, really got into Maiden and Motorhead and bands like that. Just like, yes, I love lead guitar, and it's the guitar is such a wonderful instrument, but just the bass guitar and the personality of the bass guitar always just kind of appealed to me more so than a lead guitar did. And none of my friends that were interested in playing music wanted to play the bass, so that had a lot to do with it. And I just always loved the groove and the sound and the feel of it and the look of it. Everything about the guitar just fit my personality more so than a 6-string guitar did. Metallica being my main influence. This little ditty from song off the Master of Puppets record. Just this little interlude piece. That part, that little melody piece from Orion, that whole piece of music is hands down one of my favorites. But just that little interlude part, I love. I still do to this day. Being very inexperienced, just when I started playing the guitar and learning parts, I just wanted to learn the parts that sounded cool. So I learned that. I learned My Friend of Misery, God That Failed. I love that riff. And I always remember when I first heard that riff, when I first bought that album and listened to it, I was obviously big into wrestling. And I remember it was early teenager, and I remember going like, that's going to be my entrance music. Just that bass and that drum, I was like, that just, I pictured myself as just some big badass walking to the ring. That wasn't the case, especially when I started. But I was like, that's such cool entrance music. I mean, look at the history of pro wrestling. The best entrance music has been heavy metal, hands down. When I learned, I basically bought all the Metallica tablature books, all the albums that were out at that point, which was just the first 5. Maybe Load had just come out. I would try to learn Metallica. I would try to learn Megadeth. I would try to, and then, I would try to go back, and I learned the band I'm in now, Gutter Candy, we play a lot of 80s and 90s rock and metal, like radio hits. So, certainly, I mean, I'm playing his bass. Guns N' Roses, Duff was a huge inspiration on me. So learning some GNR stuff, some Crew stuff, and some Poison stuff. And now, like I said, being in that band, we play everything from Iron Maiden to In Excess to, like I said, to Poison, to Motley, to just, we're kind of all over the place, REM, stuff like that. When I would originally be learning, I would be like, okay, what is this? What's a bend? And I would go in the index in the book and look what a bend was and try to perfect that. So like hammer-ons and everything like that, because it was all, and this is long before YouTube, so I couldn't just go on YouTube and look, and look at, okay, what is this I'm supposed to be doing? So a lot of it was trial by fire and trial and error, and I was also trying to do, like Cliff Burton, like tapping techniques that he does, like in Anesthesia, way earlier than I should have. I had no business doing that, and also with the bass guitar. I picked it up and I played it. And then my wrestling career kept me really busy. So the bass guitar took a back seat for a good while. Like I always picked it up and played it, but I was really busy wrestling. But luckily in the last 8 to 10 years, I have worked my schedule to where I can play and rehearse and do gigs and still be on the road and wrestle. But yeah, early on, like I would tell any new player, the same thing I would tell any new wrestler: learn the fundamentals, do the reps. As boring as it sounds, as much as you want to be doing Steve Harris bass lines, right? It's not going to happen. So put in the reps, just like any athlete should, and learn the instrument and the techniques and the songs and those cool solos. That'll all come. So I learned with my fingers, and I wanted to be like Cliff Burton. I wanted to be like Rob Trujillo. I wanted to be like Steve Harris. I wanted to be like all these guys who just had these incredibly fast fingers, playing with all 4 fingers. So that's how I learned. I learned playing with my fingers. And I always did that. And when I joined the band Gutter Candy, a lot of the songs, like the aforementioned, like the Guns N' Roses catalog stuff and the Poison stuff, the Crew stuff, those are all played by guys that are primarily pick players, Duff and Nikki Sixx. So it just sounded a little bit more like the song I was playing if I used to pick on those songs. And so because I was so used to doing this, my picking, instead of down picking, I learned this weird like up picking technique that I still use. I know there's a real, at least there used to be like a real, like if you used a pick, you were like almost looked down on in like the bass guitar community. And I think that softened up a little bit. In fact, I just saw an interview where Jason Newsted was talking about that, where like he used to like get some shit for using a pick, and it's like, some of the best bassists on earth ever used picks. I like doing things like I'll do the opening riff of "Sweet Child of Mine" just because that's just that little stuff like that, just because it gets my fingers moving. Like a. Don't Go Away Mad, things like that. I'll warm up with stuff like that just to get my fingers moving. 12-bar blues, stuff like that. And like lately I've been, I'm almost going back to when I was really young. I'm like, well, I would like recently revisited P-Cells, But Who's Buying, stuff like that. I recently just learned Hotel California just because I'm also a big Eagles fan, and I was like, it's a great song. I wrote that riff so long ago. I used to jam with a band a decade ago, and we kind of tried to turn that into a song. And my other band, Vex Temper, I gave that to them, and they liked it. We kind of did something around that. And my new band, my current band, Gutter Candy, we're actually writing a song kind of based around that riff. Because I always liked it. It's just kind of cool, kind of dark. And I literally wrote it in the 90s, the late 90s. And it's just been sitting around. It's just something I always did. And it's like that's the joke. It's like, will I ever actually have a song based around that riff? So the answer, I hope, is probably yes. It's just 20 years later. So, but yeah, that was the first. It's real simple. I'm certainly not breaking any new ground with that riff, but I just kind of like the groove. We have a lot of originals. I sent you in one called "No Mercy" that we wrote. That's basically a nod to the Karate Kid franchise and the Cobra Kai series. It's kind of like loosely based around what Steel Panther does, to where they do, obviously they kind of play homage to the 80s and 90s rock scene, but they have incredible originals. A lot of like hardcore heavy metal fans are into wrestling and vice versa. I think that the relationship between music, live music, and wrestling, I think there's a real good opportunity for that to be discussed long form, like a documentary or something, because the parallels are crazy. Like coming up on the independent scene as a wrestler, you learn your craft and you get booked on a show, but to do that show, you drive yourself there, you help set up the ring. Sometimes you're not even working, you're just working security, or you're taking tickets, or you're selling merch. Then you help tear down the thing. Or if you do finally get an opportunity to wrestle, you're in the first match and you get your ass kicked in 5 minutes. Same thing like when you're setting up, you're lucky enough to get a booking at a dive bar down the road. You're bringing your own stuff, you're setting it up. You're playing for 20 minutes if you're lucky. And then, as you go up the ladder, you continue to work hard. You're playing bigger gigs, and the sound's a little bit better, and you're getting a little bit more money, just like wrestling. Then maybe you get lucky enough to get some TV exposure. It's just live entertainment. It's wrestling and music they're so similar, and just the way, because it's all based on action and reaction. Wrestling, what we do something and the crowd reacts. When you're on stage, you hit a note, you start kicking to a riff, and the crowd reacts. It's live theater with music. You're doing it with your instruments, with your vocals. With wrestling, we're obviously doing it with our bodies and taking bumps and doing spectacular acrobatics. Not necessarily me, but a lot of guys are just really kicking someone's ass, getting your ass kicked. There's such a connection between the two.